rather be stuck in a forest with a man or a bear?
The bear. Bear.
Honestly, all men are gonna cheat no matter where you go.
Does he cook though?
I mean, can you fight? Let's ask pointless questions.
How's it a pointless question? I'm trying to get to know you.
Because that's your job.
What's my job?
To make sandwiches.
When it was announced that The Little Mermaid would be made into live action, the actress said, "I'm really excited for my version of the film, because we've definitely changed that perspective of just her wanting to leave the ocean for a boy."
Your version of Snow White is different.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful.
Really, really wonderful.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, what is brewing in the human realm? Is that some sort of brawl? It is not a brawl, but a war instead. War of power and revenge. War that knows not of nuance. War that gives no second chance. It is now your time to pick a side. Be a part of the divide. Disney, the fairy tale company. Or that's what we remember them as, because they build themselves up on the fairy tales of others. But at the core of it, I think they're a company that flows with the times and changes their stories according to what they think is currently societally acceptable. I sometimes hear people being frustrated with modern Disney trying to adapt their stories for modern audiences, so you might be surprised to find out that they always have.
This feature film was inspired by a fairy tale written long ago, but that story has been enhanced for today's audience.
The stories of old Disney, just like the stories of new Disney, were aimed at modern audiences. The difference is not in the approach, but in the values of said modern times. Thus, I consider Disney to be a mirror that stares back at us, showing us the reality we've made for ourselves. And in the past few years, we've been staring at something very disturbing. A reality in which love is weakness and power is gained through self-serving, self-centered means. The goals of the fairy tale villains are now commended and praised, and those who are meek and kind are viewed as less. It is disappointing to observe this reality reflected in a company whose work we used to cherish, but that also means that Disney is conveniently for us a time capsule that we can revisit so we find what went wrong. And today in particular, I want to find the answer to the question, when did we vilify romance and why? And for the purposes of our exploration, I'll be jumping between some of the Disney animations and live-action remakes, and I will skip the Pixar animations. I know that Pixar is owned by Disney, but I still see them as a separate entity. So, with that out of the way, come here in my fairy tale carriage and let's go. Our journey begins 14 years ago in 2010 with the release of the movie Tangled. Tangled is Disney's reimagining of the story of Rapunzel, and is when I think Disney romance was at its best. Imagine it as a progress graph. In the beginning, there were stories like Snow White, 1937, and Cinderella, 1950, where romance is viewed as a positive, but the story flows in a more archetypal way, where we don't seek explanations as to why or how the girl or the boy fell in love. The Disney retelling relies on our pre-existing knowledge of what a fairy tale is and why people have for centuries rooted for the girl to find her prince. So those productions of the time are more interested in the overall plot rather than the psychological characterizations of the people in their stories, because essentially at that point in time they're not people, they're archetypal characters in a very straightforward fairy tale. What we can extract as information from those very early Disney stories is that society at the time regarded romance as something positive, something that improves your life. The love between two people was considered the dream. Moving to the Disney Renaissance, stories like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Mulan, Aladdin, we see protagonists with better developed psychological characterizations. They have wants, needs, and motivations. The Little Mermaid is a teenage girl with an overprotective father who yearns to be part of the human world. Mulan is a daughter who wishes to prove herself a worthy family member. Aladdin is a poor boy who wants to be free from his circumstances, Belle is a dreamer and an intellectual, stuck amongst people with simpler lives who don't understand her aspirations, pushing her to crave something more than this provincial life. Those characters don't seek love from the get-go, for they have their own personal goals, but they do end up finding it, and it changes their lives for the better. Ariel now not only wants to be part of the human world, she has a special person living up there that she wants to go to. Aladdin learns that there is something better than being rich, and that's a person loving you the way you are, even though you're not a prince. Mulan, through her selflessness and bravery, ends up meeting a person who admires her for who she is and not who society expects her to be, and so on. It is important to note, though, that the Disney Renaissance stories are not complete love stories. If I am to compare them to a genre of art, I'd say they're like Impressionism, where you might not be able to make out every single detail up close, but when you back up a little bit, you get the full picture. You don't need to hear what Ariel and Eric are talking about on that boat. You don't need to hear the exact conversation Aladdin and Jasmine have on their carpet ride. You don't need to know what Mulan and Shang will talk about when they have dinner together. You don't need to hear what Belle and the Beast talk about when they're feeding the birds together. You can infer that from the context and the songs that are played during those love montages. In other words, we see that there is love developing between the two characters, but we don't learn the details surrounding it. Just snippets of conversations, enough for us to imagine the rest and relate it to our own lives, the way the creators of the movies did themselves.
My wife, 1 in a million chances I'd ever see her again. Lost her telephone number, started driving down the street the next day, and she came walking out of the first hotel. It was meant to be. And I just say that The Little Mermaid teaches us that love cannot be defeated.
What we can deduce from the Renaissance stories is that during the 90s, society was still very much in love with love. It is important to note, however, that due to their structure, the Renaissance stories result in a not fully developed love interests, who take a backseat in order for the main character to shine. We don't know much about who Prince Eric is, nor how did Chang grow up, or what did Nala do while Simba was away, or how did the Beast feel all those years he spent hiding from the world. We don't get deep into the minds and motivations of these love interests. This results in an unbalanced dynamic, which Disney decided to correct in the 2010s. Their first trial at two completely fleshed out love interests, I believe, was the Princess and the Frog movie, but arguably their best attempt in that direction is the 2010 Tangled. I'm sorry to disappoint the dreamers amongst you, it was not a decision out of love and care. It was a decision with monetary gain in mind. Disney didn't want to alienate their boy audience. But we can still appreciate that whatever the core intentions, a story driven by the goal of respecting and fleshing out both characters of the love duo instead of minimizing one in order to uplift the other, made for a wonderful story. Tangled is vaguely based on the story of Rapunzel, but it makes creative liberties in all the right directions. The story is not told by a random narrator, but rather Eugene, our male lead character, which makes it feel more personal. Eugene tells us about times long ago when a particle of the sun fell on the ground and grew into a beautiful flower with magical healing and rejuvenating powers. It was discovered by an old woman who selfishly decided to keep it for herself. Years passed and not too far away, a beautiful kingdom flourished. All was well until the queen fell ill during pregnancy. The times were desperate and people were looking for a miracle, and on a lonely hidden cliff they found it. The magical flower. The queen was saved and she gave birth to a healthy baby who had inherited the powers of the sun in the form of magical hair that rejuvenates and heals. The only catch, however, being that if the hair is cut, it loses its powers. Having learned that, the old woman, Mother Gothel, kidnapped the baby, determined to keep her hidden from the world forever. After the setting is established, we then follow our two main characters. The 18-year-old Rapunzel, who's grown up with a self-obsessed, emotionally neglectful mother who sees her as nothing more than a tool. And Eugene, who goes by the fake name Flynn Rider, an orphan boy who turned bandit, craving a life of riches, thinking that's what will make his life meaningful. I'm not here to tell you the whole story, of course, but Rapunzel and Eugene end up meeting each other and heading on an adventure. We see them presented as their own people with individual goals and issues, who at the core of it suffer from the same hurt, having nobody to love them for who they truly are. The adventure of Eugene and Rapunzel is very balanced. They both need each other, and I'm honing in on that fact because we'll soon observe how this dynamic changes in modern Disney, where said need doesn't seem to be mutual. In the beginning of the story, Rapunzel is slightly scared of this whole new big world she's never explored, and so she needs a guide, someone to make her feel safe. She needs Eugene. However, she is not a character without agency. When Eugene brings her to an inn with scary-looking people, she proves she can hold her own in a dangerous situation. She even ends up saving Eugene in that inn by de-escalating the tense situation that had been built up amongst the people. Throughout the adventure, Rapunzel and Eugene open up to each other and help each other grow as individuals. Rapunzel becomes more confident, and for the first time ever, Eugene feels like the real him is worthy of love.
I like Eugene Fitzherbert much better.
Then you'd be the first. But thank you.
They become each other's dream, each other's inspiration, each other's motivation to be the best versions of themselves, which by the end results in the ultimate selfless sacrifice by both of them. Towards the end of the story, Mother Gothel captures Rapunzel, intending to drag her somewhere very far away where no one will ever find her ever again. Eugene gets to them just in time but ends up being stabbed by Mother Gothel. And here, Rapunzel decides to sacrifice the happiness she barely got to taste, the joy of freedom, and promises she'll never retaliate against Mother Gothel if she's allowed to heal Eugene just this once. Eugene, however, loves Rapunzel more than his own life. He can't allow her to throw her freedom away like this, so he too decides to sacrifice what is most precious to a human, his life. And he cuts off Rapunzel's hair before she could heal him. This ultimate sacrifice on both sides is what leads to their victory over injustice and earns them their happy ending. Tangled, I think, is the last Disney princess movie that successfully captures the essence of romantic love, that values mutual respect and encapsulates the beauty of a relationship where two people love each other selflessly. Oh, to have someone that will put you above your own needs. That is the greatest blessing in life. But it is also a concept that is widely misunderstood and abused, and is, I think, one of the core causes for romance being vilified. In order for selfless love to work, it needs to happen on both ends. If you both put the other above yourself, you'll both be taken care of because someone's looking out for you, so you both thrive. However, if you end up in a one-sided selfless relationship, you immediately turn into a victim. The selfish partner will only take, and since you have nobody who loves you more than themselves, you start losing yourself. You feel the neglect, you feel burdened, used, hurt. You have nobody to take care of you. You'll practically be alone, giving it all to someone who won't reciprocate. Faced with many such real-life relationship examples, society had a choice to make. Who to blame for this occurrence? The selfish person or the selfless one? And society made its choice. It decided to blame the selfless person. Instead of saying, there's nothing wrong with you for being selfless and kind, you're just with the wrong partner, it said, your tremendous love is weakness. You're at fault for ending up like this. You were too open, too vulnerable, too kind. Instead of saying, it's okay to give love, you just have to find the agency to free yourself from this unhealthy dynamic and find someone who appreciates the love, it said, look at your selfish partner. They're thriving because they're selfish. Therefore, you need to be selfish too. Chase your own interest because the world is cold and no one will care about you. close-up, vulnerability is weakness. Protect yourself, never give too much of yourself, don't trust anybody. You'll get hurt and it will be your fault. Love is weakness, kindness is weakness, care is weakness, be selfish, be strong. This understanding of love as weakness is evidently spread amongst men through terms like simp, originally invented to criticize men who dedicate their time and money to women who never look at them, that have now transpired into an insult carelessly thrown at any man who puts effort and cares for his woman. But for the purposes of our Disney exploration, we need to see how this understanding of love as weakness affects women and female protagonists in particular. June 7th, 1938. Dear Miss Fords, women do not do any of the creative work in connection with preparing the cartoons for the screen, as that work is performed entirely by young men. For this reason, girls are not considered for the training school. Yours very truly, Walt Disney Productions. Brave's writer and director Brenda Chapman recalls being dismissively told by the men who hired her that she was getting the job because she was a woman. Mulan's producer Pam Coates says, I spent a lot of time in rooms with a lot of men who are talking about how women think and dress and how their bodies are shaped. There is a scene in Mulan where she gets revealed to be a woman. In a male artist's earlier sketches, she was revealed to be a woman in front of the entire unit. It just felt so violating. Code says, how Walt Disney ruined our love lives. The myth of the happily ever after. Disney, you see, contributed to the failure of many marriages around the world. He did this by glamorizing and magnifying fairy tales that causes us, women especially, to have unrealistic expectations about how successful romantic relationships are made and maintained. Real relationships don't involve knights in shining armor, soulmates, gleaming carriages, castles, or above all, living happily ever after. But the Disney-ized tales, now engraved in our consciousness, make us feel these things are real, even after years of counseling in which our therapists beg to differ. Finally, one morning we wake up and we realize our partner is actually not the one. We've made a mistake. The world of the 2010s witnessed two important phenomena. One in the world of business, and one in people's personal lives. On the business front, echoed the voices of women who have for years felt unheard in a man's world, who have felt like their wings have been cut, who at long last became empowered to fight to be part of certain high-paying male-dominated fields. And in the personal sphere, a rise of women who grew up watching Disney and were now disillusioned with the reality of being a grown-up. There's no Prince Charmings coming to save them. The men they met turned out to be humans too. Flawed as all humans, selfish, ego-driven, not at all glamorous, not having it all figured out, battling their own battles, not being remotely close to what one would consider the one. And just in a couple of years, the childhood ideals crashed and burned, and the world became a dark, cynical, hateful place. What do you do with your life when you realize that Prince Charming was just an ideal? How do you fill the void? You let the dark thoughts pour in. You stop seeing kindness in the world. You can't get over that one person who let you down, who was selfish, who used you. And you think, I can't let my children suffer like this. Things need to change. We shouldn't lie to them. There is no Prince Charming. All they got is themselves. They must figure it themselves out. Disney's narratives must change. They must show our daughters that they can empower themselves on their own, so they don't wind up hurt like us. They need a new role model. And a new role model there was. Fresh out of the world of business, the once silenced woman who had now taken control over her life. The girl boss. According to the definition, a girl boss is a term used to refer to a self-made woman who runs her own company or leads one. She was the new beacon of hope. She did it all. She didn't need a man. In fact, she fought bravely in a man's world. And for a little while, everything seemed to be perfect. But there is a tiny problem. The girl boss was as much of an ideal as Prince Charming is. Here's the thing, when people were mad at Disney for ruining their love life, they didn't take into account one thing. Ideals are there for you to strive for, but you should never, I mean never, ever, ever confuse them with reality. Ideals are there to give you hope. Ideals are there when reality feels too grim, to look up to and see a future that could be better. Ideals are there to remind you that life can be beautiful, that you needn't drown in despair. But you mustn't ever be deceived as to expect the ideals to turn into reality. Ideals are very powerful. In their good form, they inspire you, they make you better, they give you a reason to keep going. But in their evil form, they drop you from immeasurable heights to your doom. They become the shadow that looms over you, that makes you feel miserable compared to them. The expectations that you'll never live up to. If you don't realize that truth, you will be disappointed with any ideal. Both Prince Charming and the girl boss will be the same lie of a happy, successful, fulfilled, ideal life, a lie. The way Prince Charming was a flawed human, the same way the girl boss was one too. As the years passed, people started speaking up about the girl boss, how her work environment was just as toxic, if not more, than any other. How she'd mistreat her employees, how she wouldn't help fellow women, for she was as selfish as anybody else in such high positions. People started realizing that the girl boss was just as ruthless as the boss, because that's what a corporate environment calls for. If we look at it from a selfless, selfish perspective, the girl boss is the physical manifestation of the realization that kindness, selflessness, meekness, love, care will not translate into climbing a corporate ladder, and instead a selfish, cocky, determined person wins and will always win over you. The girl boss was, yes, a successful woman, but to what measurement of success? Not everybody wants life void of love, where you see people as competition. Not everyone wants to be self-sufficient. Not everyone wants to be brave at all times. The girl boss was a role model, sure, but not for everyone. She should have never become a global role model. Her life is too harsh for the average person. But it was too late. Things have been set in motion, and there was no turning back. The era of the girl boss had settled in, and that would bring upon a divide one could have never even imagined. Every hero needs an arch nemesis. How could you be a hero if you have nothing to fight against? You must save someone from something in order to be a hero. Prince Charming had the evil queen or king or magician or dragon to fight, and the girl boss needed somebody too. In real life, the girl boss was a woman who fought to earn her position amongst men, amongst rude, horrible men who stifled her success, who belittled her, who didn't believe in her. So it was a natural progression for the fictional girl boss to fight men too. This sentiment seemed to have been readily welcomed by the media at the time, but would the boundary between vile men and simply men get blurred as time passed? A 2016 BuzzFeed article, How Women Modernized Disney Princesses, states, as Moana continues to conquer the box office, meet some of the women who paved the way for princesses who didn't need princes. The article continues, Beauty and the Beast is still a love story, yes, but Belle is a step in the proud spinster direction. Princess and the Frog does feature romance, but it is a glimpse of what happily ever after might look for a woman madly in love with her career. In 2012's Brave, the Disney princess finally ditched the prince, and Moana is strong and smart and brave and single, not in spite of her princess peers, but because of them and the women who demanded more. You can see clearly here that romance is now equated to less. Women empowerment is presented as antithetical to loving a man. After all, it was men who wronged women so much throughout history. You can't be meek and vulnerable before them. They'll use you. They're the enemy. The 2013 Frozen was the next princess animation after Tangled, and you can already see a subtle shift happening when it comes to the understanding of romance. Frozen is the movie about two sisters, Queen Elsa and Princess Anna, and the development of their relationship. Anna, the younger sister, is portrayed as the naive one, as she ends up falling in love with a man within a day, and she is immediately ready to marry him, but ends up being betrayed and hurt by him. Within the plot of Frozen, the concept was fine, I enjoyed it when I first saw it. But in the grand scheme of things, it indicates a shift in the perspective, a critical look of the past ideas of romance that condemns the stories of old and introduces a new understanding of relationships. After Frozen, Disney completely distanced themselves from romance in their animation department, but the situation with their live actions was more complicated. The current era Disney live actions follow the formula of copying the original story, and those original stories contain romance. So how do you deal with that? Well, it is difficult but not impossible. Let's take a look. The first current era Disney live actions were still testing out the waters, so they didn't do much shocking. But as time passed, Disney got more emboldened, and so we started getting things as Mulan 2020, Lady and the Tramp 2019, The Little Mermaid 2023, and the upcoming Snow White. To start with Mulan, quick recap for the uninitiated. Mulan is the story of a girl living in Imperial China. Her duty as a daughter is to find a good husband, but unfortunately she fails the meeting with her matchmaker. Soon after, however, Mulan sees the opportunity to make up for her perceived inadequacy. Mulan's old father is summoned in a general conscription, as his family has no sons, and Mulan decides to go instead of him. She disguises herself as a man and heads on a dangerous mission during a time when a woman in the army is a crime, punishable by death. Through her smarts and bravery and persistence, Mulan ends up saving the empire and bringing honor to her family. That's the short gist of it. Now, a part of the animation that isn't the main focus, yet is significant, is the blooming romance between Mulan and the General Shang, who led Mulan's unit. So you can imagine the shock of the Disney fans when the creators of the 2020 Mulan live-action remake announced that Mulan's love interest, Li Shang, was removed from his captain position and turned into a random soldier. The reason behind this decision was explained by the producer Jason Reed, who said, "I think particularly in the time of the Me Too movement, having a commanding officer that is also the sexual love interest was very uncomfortable and we didn't think it was appropriate." While the real-life social context and unease is understandable, my immediate concern upon hearing about this change was that this cynical approach to relationships is bound to fail in portraying a meaningful and fulfilling dynamic between Mulan and a partner, as Shang from the start is perceived as a potential predator that needs to be made less harmful, rather than the stern but gentle and righteous man he was in the animation. Let's examine their romance in the animation and the live action and see if my concerns were proved right. In the animation, the first interaction goes as follows. Mulan and her guardian friend Dragon Mushu have just arrived in the army camp. To Mulan, this whole gathering of men seems a little peculiar. She's not exactly sure how she'll fit in. She does try doing manly stuff, and that leads to a whole scuffle happening on the camp. Meanwhile, we see the general and his son Shang discussing war strategies. The general describes Shang as number one in his class with extensive knowledge of training techniques worthy of being a captain, and a teacher for the new recruits. We see Shang being immensely grateful for the opportunity he's given and very determined to not disappoint. He believes in the potential of his troops even before he's seen them, which leads to his disappointment when he goes out and finds the scuffle. All the soldiers accuse Mulan. Shang does reprimand her actions, but Mulan doesn't seem to feel offended by that since she realizes she caused the situation. She just wishes to improve. The next day, it's training time, and we see Shang take off his shirt. And Mulan isn't impartial to what she sees. It's not made out to be a big deal, but it does show an interest, which is an important fact. The situation on the live-action front is much more grim. Their first interaction is actually very hostile. There's a scuffle between the men, this time not caused by Mulan because our heroine could do no wrong. Mulan ends up falling and Shang extends his hand to say,
"Need a hand, little man?"
The animation Shang didn't feel the need to belittle anyone. His actions were all dictated by the need to establish discipline amongst the soldiers. But the live-action Shang's first words are "need a hand, little man?" This is not only awkward because him and Mulan are relatively the same size, but it is also seemingly pointless. Why would a character's first reaction when they see someone they want to help is also simultaneously belittle them? Because I'm a gal, I did seek male opinion, and I was told that men don't talk like that to each other, but that it's probably the movie's way trying to be cool. And honestly, that could make sense if the guy saying this line was an older man or a heavier set man than Mulan, but in this context it was clearly meant to be offensive and belittling, as we see Mulan being offended by it. She slaps the guy's hand, says she won't let him insult her, gets up on her own as she needs no help from nobody, and draws her sword at him, prompting him to draw his sword too. This is our new foundation for a relationship. A pointlessly rude guy and Mulan bursting at the seams with pent-up anger. One might say that this is a fun start for a enemies to lovers arc, but I would argue it remains more like enemies to lukewarm acquaintances. The next relatively important scene where we see Mulan and live-action Shang interact is that at this table. The conversation at this table may not be all that important in the grand scheme of things, but it paints an interesting image of men, and so I want to talk to you about it. Let me first show you how it plays out in the animation. The guys in the animation are sent off to war. They have to travel through an excruciating, exhausting mountain terrain, and when they feel defeat, they start reminding themselves of why all this pain is worth it. They start singing about what kind of girl would be worth fighting for, each of them describing the type of girl they're ready to go to war and potentially die for. In the live action, this is changed to men simply objectifying women, talking in general about what physical attributes in women they lust over.
I like my women buxom. With strong, wide hips.
I like kissing women with cherry red lips.
What she looks like.
I agree.
I care what she cooks like.
From something relatively well-intentioned, the scene turns into a very uncomfortable, malicious cocktail of hatred and mockery.
My ideal woman is courageous.
A courageous woman.
She's also smart.
But what does she look like?
Jun's not describing a woman. He's describing me.
Mind you, those are the same men that are supposed to be Mulan's comrades, who she's supposed to fight along and protect. In the animation, we see Mulan's comrades as flawed but generally well-intentioned people. Their interactions with Mulan start on the wrong footing but progress into mutual respect and playful interactions. In the live action, on the contrary, Mulan's comrades are portrayed as ill-intentioned, irredeemable, vulgar men, which makes Mulan's future choices to fight alongside them and protect them illogical.
Will live because I will protect you.
Because the character's experiences and feelings have no logical connection. The plot demands Mulan to care about those people, but the ones writing their characters hate them. And so we get a scene of some vile characters that our heroine is supposed to care about. And here comes the role of live-action Shang. His role is to not be like other guys. After the uncomfortable table conversation, he goes to tell Mulan not to pay attention to those guys, which prompts her to like him. Again, sort of illogically. He didn't directly protect her at that table.
Describing me.
That's not you, Yao. That's definitely not you.
That's all he did. Apparently that's enough. In the animation as already established, Shang is his own character. He's skillful, he's good looking. He shows an incredible mental strength in the moment when we see he realizes his father died in a battle. but proceeds to lead his soldiers, suppressing his immense grief in a time when action needs to be taken. All those qualities leave Mulan impressed by him and empathetic to his pain. They give her a reason to admire him and feel for him. As the movie progresses, she, in her turn, earns Shang's respect. From the weakest, most incompetent soldier, she proves herself to be the most dedicated, most persistent one. Her ingenious war strategy ends up proving more successful than Shang's, and not only that, but on a personal level she saves his life. I would consider that a relatively equal footing in a relationship, where both sides have done something to earn the other's respect and admiration. I'd call this a logical sequence of events, leading to two people liking each other. Now let me give you an illogical one. Live-action Mulan is perfect. We see live-action Shang being in awe with her, which is honestly lovely. I'd assume everyone wishes for a partner who admires them for what they excel in. But here is the problem. Live-action Shang doesn't excel in anything. In fact, he's quite unremarkable. All his scenes, except the first one in which he was randomly rude, exist for him to marvel at Mulan and pine over how she's the best.
She's braver than any man here. And she's the best warrior amongst us.
What was that today? It was incredible.
While he himself being nothing much. He doesn't have goals and aspirations. He doesn't even risk his life for her. That's the job of a random, newly invented woman character. I don't even want to get into it. Throughout the whole movie, live-action Shang gets nothing but the cold treatment from Mulan.
We started off on the wrong foot. Can we be friends?
I'm not your friend.
Even at the end of the movie, the last words she says to him when he says,
"You can't leave,"
are,
The Emperor gives his permission, but you do not.
As if to say, who do you think you are to tell me what I can do? Live-action Shang practically begs Mulan to hold his hand.
You still won't take my hand.
Only to receive a half-hearted response before she turns her back on him, leaving him pining over her. The end of their romance that never even started.
There's no real bond between them either. There's just no emotion in this movie. Oh my god.
To put a little salt into the wound, this is how animation Mulan reacts to her Shang.
Would you like to stay for dinner?
Would you like to stay forever?
It is peculiar, isn't it? How the live-action stripped Shang of his military positions and character backstory in order to give him an equal footing to Mulan, yet it did a poor job exactly in the equal footing department, resulting in a forced romance and shallow emotional value. When I think about it, it kinda seems like revenge to me. A revenge for all the guys throughout all of history who've had women pine over them, who've played with women's feelings, who've been cold to women. And while I understand the frustration with these men in particular, Shang was never those men. He was a role model, he was beloved for a reason. If I think really hard about it, I can even for a moment imagine seeing the thought pass through one's head. Oh, haha, wouldn't it be funny to replace all honorable male characters with unfavorable versions of themselves, the way men have been portraying women unfavorably in the past? Wouldn't that be ironic? Haha. Yet, it is hard for me to imagine the levels of pent-up frustration that would lead to one actually scripting the idea and going through with it. I know revenge is sweet. Humans really like the concept of vengeance. That's why we make the instant karma videos go viral. That's why we like seeing people get what they deserve. But there's one problem. We're not omnipresent. We don't understand everyone's past, present and future actions, and most importantly, we can't predict for certain what our choices will lead to. Maybe in the short term you get the satisfaction of punishing guys through fiction, but maybe in the grand scheme of things you contribute to a young boy seeing those guys on the table objectifying women as something normal that happens between most men. Or maybe you contribute to the mutual distrust and hatred between people, and maybe one day your daughter will be a part of society that hates her because of your actions. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But maybe. But let's not linger on Mulan, we've more movies to go through. If the concept of revenge seemed a bit far-fetched to you, I really think Lady and the Tramp will help you see it more clearly. Lady and the Tramp is a Disney animation made 69 years ago in 1955, meaning I, born in the year 2000, had never seen it before. Only the iconic snippets, nothing more. And so on my first watch a couple of days ago, I must say it didn't really age well in some aspects. For example, those cats. Or this.
But darling has never struck me before.
Or this.
Oh, Tony, you know, he doesn't know how to speak English pretty good.
Or that.
It's been Lulu, Trixie, Fifi.
I can see how Tramp being portrayed as a nonchalant womanizer, while Lady being the innocent little being that changes him, is not a dynamic Disney would want to portray in a modern movie. I can attest that I personally wasn't a fan of how it was handled at all, so I understand why they'd want to change it, but what I don't understand is the way they decided to go about it. Again, for the uninitiated, the plot of Lady and the Tramp is pretty simple. It's about this Cocker Spaniel lady living in an upper middle class family and Tramp, a street-smart stray dog. When Lady's owners are about to have a baby, she starts feeling neglected. Around that time, she meets Tramp, who shows her what an adventurous life outside means, and in her turn, Lady helps him open up. After all these years living abandoned by his humans, and helps him allow kindness and stability back into his life. Now, remember how the live-action Shang was pointlessly made out to be rude in scene 1 of meeting him, for no apparent reason? Well, we get the same thing here. Animation Tramp is beloved by all. He helps all.
Gotta get you out.
He's kind to the store puppies. Hear him gently talk to them.
Cute little rascals. Goo.
For me personally, there's nothing more heartwarming than a guy being caring and gentle to kids. It's just the type of thing that melts you. So please tell me, what was the reason they made him an absolute douchebag in the live action? I promise you it has zero plot relevance except that it paints his character in a twisted way. Hear him interact with the other street dogs.
Bust us out of here.
Oh, no. You're on your own.
And with the puppies.
Left in a box by the side of the road. You know what? I've heard it before, so beat it. You gotta earn your lunch.
Let me remind you, Tramp has been hurt by humans. He has no reason to be hateful of other dogs. They're all trying to survive. So again, it seems like a deliberate choice. Something also seemingly pointless is that Tramp in the animation earned his food. Here, he steals it. Which, given the context of Lady and the Tramp being an allegory for lower and upper class people, unintentionally paints lower class people as thieves, which I'm not sure is the progressive take Disney was aiming to achieve. It quite frankly irks me. The millionaires or billionaires at Disney writing poor people as thieves is tone deaf at best. And the thing is, I don't even think they intended it like that. I think they were just too blinded by their goal to portray Tramp as a bad character. Or at least that's my theory. Similarly to Mulan, Lady and the Tramp's first meeting is completely tonally different in the animation and the live action. In the animation, Lady is complaining from the change in her family and Tramp casually shows up, explaining what having a baby in the house means, at least what his experience was. Nothing more, nothing less, just a conversation. In the live action, Tramp is running away from animal control. He trespasses in Lady's territory and now his fate is in her paws. He has to beg and beg her to spare him and not tell on his location. All the while Lady is being absolutely rude and hostile to him.
I'm gonna bark.
Please do not do that.
Don't tell me what to do.
Stray dog.
I'm begging you.
Fine.
The humiliation ritual of Tramp only continues as the movie progresses. We see him being inadequate in his own outside environment, while Lady handles herself quite well, even though the whole point was that both dogs are introducing each other to a world one of them is unfamiliar with. Everything Tramp does is slightly embarrassing. And even at the iconic dinner scene, the writers make sure to tell Tramp,
She's way too good for you, Butch.
compared to the animation.
Settle down with this one.
But out of all of these, the scene that just seals it for me is this one. Lady's on the street, being chased by a gang of dogs. She's scared and Tramp jumps in. It's such a sweet scene. I don't know a person who doesn't like to feel safe with their partner. There was no issue with Mulan saving Shang or Rapunzel saving Eugene, but we draw the line at Tramp saving Lady. That's just unacceptable. In the live action, Lady saves herself. Tramp tells her to pretend she has rabies and him and the other dog run away scared from the very scary lady. It is weird, it's not as impactful. I understand, everyone has different relationship dynamics, but for the most part I feel like people as nuanced beings like being both. They like being the protectors and protected. They like feeling safe and they like being saved. That's the point of having a partner. It is having a rest. It is having someone who take off your burdens when life is being too much, and it is someone whose burdens you take off when their life feels too much. Ideally, it is a balanced dynamic, a safe haven where the world's rules don't matter, where you can be authentically yourself, both vulnerable and both each other's pillars. It is not a competition. The whole point is that you don't have to hide your weakness from them. The point is that you can allow them to save you and not feel less for it. That's why when romance turns into competition and people have to let you know that your partner is too good for you, it's game over. Your partner is not supposed to be too good for you. You're supposed to be the best for each other. Otherwise, someone will feel hurt, someone will feel less, and this will grow into a deep wound that might never heal and cause a chasm between you. There is more that can be told about Lady and the Tramp, but we need to move on. If you're interested though, and you want to make a comparison for yourselves, I recommend you find all the ways that Lady's owner, Jim, is belittled in the live action. They are not very subtle, and so if you feel like it, definitely go seek them and you will be shocked. The story of The Little Mermaid, at least according to Disney, follows a teenage mermaid who collects human trinkets and yearns to be part of their world, especially after falling in love with a human prince named Eric, whom she saves from a shipwreck. Due to conflicts with her father, Ariel ends up trusting the sea witch and trading her beautiful voice for human feet, as she's told if she manages to get true love's kiss within 3 days, she can remain human forever. After a lot of hurdles, Ariel succeeds. The end. As you can imagine from a premise like that, romantic love is supposed to be a key component of the story. Let's see how that pans out. The first time when Ariel sees Eric in the animation, she's infatuated with his looks, and he's shown conversing with his steward about why he didn't fall in love with some princess and how when he meets the one, he'll know it's her. Credit where credit is due, the live action did an alright change. Instead of having Ariel infatuated with his looks, they made her overhear a conversation where she understands the prince feels trapped like her and relates to him, which is actually pretty sweet. However, I would argue that in this pursuit of relatability between the two, they erased all of Eric's character. In the animation, he's portrayed as musician. That's his thing. But in the live action, his interests are erased, and instead they give him the same hobby as Ariel's, collecting things, so they have another thing to relate to. On one hand, I understand why they wanted to give them more things to relate to. On the other hand, I'm not sure that it's spreading the best message out there, because you actually don't have to share the same hobbies and personality with your partner. It is unrealistic to find a copy of yourself. Rather, the amazing thing about love is that they earned your heart through their care and kindness, and now you listen to them talk about a subject you absolutely don't understand, but you see that glow in their eyes when they talk about it, and your heart bursts at the seams with joy. But I'd say that's a nitpick, so let's move on. In both versions, there is a storm, and Ariel saves Prince Eric from the shipwreck. After this event, in the animation we see both of their lives are changed. Eric is smitten by her, and Ariel is smitten by him. She swims around all giddy, she does her hair, she plays oh he loves me not, she giggles. He loves me! As someone who was once a teenager, I'd say that's a pretty accurate portrayal, so please compare it to the live action. In the live action, we get this from Ariel. Yep, that's all. An ambiguous humming. Even when the sea witch tells her the above world has got her heart, she's shocked.
No, it's got your heart.
What do you mean? What do you mean it's got her heart? No, it hasn't. Love? No. Psh, don't be ridiculous. Meanwhile, live-action Eric is pouring his heart in a 3-minute song about how he's ready to give his life to find Ariel. What a deep impact she left on him, how he can't think of anything else but her. And you see, the thing is, those things aren't even supposed to be measured. As I already said, it's not a competition about who loves who more, but the problem is when you see that the new girl boss ideal that is supposed to be freeing and empowering now seems to put restrictions on women when it comes to expressing love openly, as if it's something embarrassing. I believe it is this newfound fear of emotions and vulnerability that leaves people feeling like something's missing in modern Disney. But it is very difficult to put your finger on it when you're watching with no other context than the movie itself. Speaking of mysteries unsolved due to lack of context, the same year The Little Mermaid was released came out Wish, Disney's anniversary animation. And this one really disappointed people with its failed potential. You see, Wish is a story about our main character Asha, who in a desperate moment wishes upon a star. This star is the root of all discussions. Let's hear what is currently known about it. Writer Alison Moore went on to say, "Once Star became a mime character, it was brain-breaking and soul-liberating. Now Star and Asha have an emotional journey. They're soulmates." Overall, Star went through 4 different major phases before reaching his final design, one which even had him manifesting as a younger version of Asha's grandfather. In other words, Star, or Starboy, was this entity that went through many developmental changes, but the fans got a whiff of the idea that he could have been Asha's love interest, and that broke the floodgates of disappointment and fanfictions of what could have been. Even in my comment section, I had a lovely viewer say this: "Oh, I've already seen plenty of fan art for Starboy and Asha, and from the sounds of the original story, Starboy and Asha could have easily become one of my favorite couples. Absolutely love the design and having a more goofy and mischievous personality like Flynn." Other people's comment sections echo this sentiment too. I learned about the concept art before the movie, and boy, Disney robbed us of a good movie. This is so sweet. I love the contrast of Asha being timid and shy, while Starboy being confident and playful. Seriously, we were robbed. We were robbed. This would have made such a better story, because love stories never get old. R.I.P. Asha and Starboy. Maybe one day your story will come to life. Seeing so many people talk about what could have been shows a clear interest for love stories.
Maybe it is a bit of my nostalgia talking here too, but I genuinely miss old school Disney princess romance.
Romance hasn't become outdated. People still want to be loved and hear about love. But the people at Disney don't. Wish's voice actor had this to say about the lack of romance in the movie. "Not every female Disney character needs to have a goal and ambition of simply finding a man to love her. There's more stories to tell." And yes, that is true, but first, all the Renaissance princesses had their own goals apart from love, and second, that statement makes it sound like a woman can't multitask being herself and finding love. Out of context, this seems like a bit of a peculiar belief to have. But when you look at it in the bigger picture of the idea of the girl boss, of that unspoken rivalry between men and women, and the idea of women empowerment through rejection of romance, it all makes a bit more sense now, doesn't it? And all these years of emotional turmoil, inner competitions and distrust, all of them lead us to this final clip of Snow White's actress saying,
"We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because we cast a guy in the movie. It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful.
It's really not about the love,
which is really, really wonderful.
Really, really wonderful.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby."
You know, I had to watch all the Disney remakes I'm talking about in the span of a few days so I can talk to you about them. And do you know what happened after I finished them all? A sense of hopelessness settled in my heart. What have we done? How did we become so hostile to one another? Why did we vilify one of the most beautiful feelings on earth? Why do we think it's empowering to be afraid of love, of vulnerability, of kindness, of selflessness? I understand a lot of us carry pain from previous negative experiences, yet something in those new modern dynamics full of distrust and hatred just doesn't feel right. Or at least those were the thoughts that were racing through my mind as I sat near the window, battling the bow of crooked wire of emotions jammed inside of my throat. I wanted to cry, but nothing was coming out really. There was just that void, that palpable gap between people, between us. But you know what? This doesn't have to be life for us. We're humans, we're flawed, but we haven't become incapable of love. I've gathered some responses from real life and from the internet to the question, what's the most comforting thing your partner has done for you? And I want to read them to you. He's able to see what emotions and experiences I'm holding on to and pull it out of me. I've never had a man like this. The way he wraps his arms around me and tells me I'll never have to be alone or do life alone ever again. The way he's wiped away my tears and kissed my cheeks when I was upset. Just the fact that every time I see him, he wraps his arms around me and brings me in as close as he can. This man is my everything. I've never felt so safe and loved in my life. She always has my back. No matter what the problem is, she reminds me that we're a team and we got this. Even if it's something that I must face alone, she's right there supporting me. There are so many things about my man that are so comforting, but the main thing that I noticed even before we dated is how grounded he is. He's not egoistic, he's so down to earth, and how he treats everyone with so much kindness. That is what made me fall for him. Just cuddle and run her fingers through my hair while I'm laying on her chest or lap. I know it's not much, but it means a lot to me. The kindness in his eyes every time he looks at me. I've grown up in a pretty tumultuous environment, and finally I feel like I have someone safe, someone who gives me peace and comfort, someone who makes me feel so loved and protected. Every time I feel like I'm too much, I talk too much, or I'm too weird, he comforts me and gives me the warmest sunset smile. I can't even pinpoint one comforting thing. All of him. He is so comforting. All of him. She talks with me. Even when there's nothing to talk about, she listens to me even when she doesn't understand what I'm talking about. When she saw me getting emotional for the first time in my life of 34 years, she sat close beside me, laid her hand on my back and my head and said, "It's okay, don't hold back, let it all out to me, I'm here," while rubbing my back. When I tell you, I put my head on her lap and I've never heard myself cry like that ever, as years of hurt and anguish left my system. And I will forever be in debt for her unconditional and pure love. He doesn't raise his voice at me, even when he's upset. And when I talk, even if it's nonsense, he listens. I grew up in a toxic household, so I wasn't allowed to really be a kid. And always had to grow up. My dad stopped carrying me at like 4, and my mom never really did it to begin with. My boyfriend carries me around everywhere. I just woke up and I need to go to the bathroom, he'll carry me. Fell asleep in the car, he'll carry me. Hurt myself, he'll carry me. Tired of walking, he'll carry me. Makes me feel like the little girl I never got to be. I was not able to sleep at night. I used to do my work to utilize the time. When she came into my life, she was the first one to hold me so close to her and make me sleep calmly. I felt like a kid when sleeping in her arms. Life isn't a fairy tale. We're all going to face struggles and pain, and maybe at some point we'll be betrayed and hurt, and maybe we have a lot of lessons to learn. But don't be deceived by the idea that knowing one person means that you know them all. We're individuals. Every human you interact with is a universe, a story. Every human will connect to you differently. Some will just brush past you and leave no impact. Others will hurt you, but then there are the ones who will click. They'll bring kindness to you. They'll see through your walls, the one society has prompted you to build up, and they'll extend a hand to the little child in your soul, the one who still needs care and love and kindness, even though you're all grown up now. So what I ask of you is, please, when you see that extended hand, take it. Because on the other side there is another child that needs that hug as much as you do. And you know, the awesome thing about hugs is that they go both ways. It is not shameful to love. You're not less for being selfless. In fact, I think the most powerful thing a human can do is overcome their ego, face their fears of being hurt, and be brave enough to love another. Hello my dear sweet people, thank you for making it to the end of this video. I feel like it's gotta be an achievement of some sorts because you made it through an hour-long video. I feel like we now share something, like a secret. I should give you a secret nickname so that, you know, when you reach the end of the video, you know you're one of the secret group. How should I call you? Maybe because it's Dusky Talks and we talk till night, you should be Nightlings. How about, hello my dear sweet Nightlings. How does that sound? No, but in all seriousness, thank you very much for watching the video to the end and for the support that I received on my last video. It really means a lot to me, so yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna keep you here for long. Have a lovely day and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, almost forgot. People say that it's important to say those stuff, so if you want to subscribe, thank you.